the Trump presidency. And the contrast on display tonight was so stark. I mean, those lights that are just shooting out from the Lincoln Memorial along the reflecting pool. It's like almost extensions of Joe Biden's arms embracing America. It was a moment where the new president came to town and sort of convened the country in this moment of remembrance, outstretching his arms.
I've reviewed hours upon hours of public hearings. I have read almost all of the lawsuits that are out there. Most of them were dismissed on legal process grounds, raising standing. And the general argument that we've heard was that because this was a general harm, if you want to believe there was fraud, that you have no standing because your harm has to be particular. And that's more or less the reason why these judges haven't touched these cases. It's not because there isn't evidence. There is evidence. In fact, I'm in possession of 574 pages of sworn affidavits, forensic reports, all of which would make its way into a court of law under the rules of evidence in a federal or state court. The fact that evidence has not been heard here by these courts, do not conflate that with this idea that there is no evidence. The courts have done what they always do. When you have political matters, they want them to be decided politically, not in a courtroom, but through the elections, through the state legislatures. And what we have are a bunch of cowards. We have judges that are cowards. We have politicians that are cowards. And that's the reality.
Courage is contagious. Remember, we do have people that are cowards. It's easy to be a coward. It's hard to show courage. People out there know this. We're in the green zone that used to be our nation's capital, in the heart of it. You're in the war room with War Room Pandemic. This is about roughly the 1-year anniversary of the show. We're going to talk more about that later in the show and also on Monday. It's the 23rd of January, the year of our Lord, 2021. It's our Saturday special. Podcast now over well north of 30 million downloads. We're live on John Frederick's, Real America's Voice, Dish Channel 219, Comcast, on cable, the satellite streaming, also in Mandarin on GTV and G News. I want to thank the folks over there. For our global audience, the diaspora of Lao Beijing, Old 100 Names, the deplorables of China. And we're obviously the network for in the show from MAGA, America First, the deplorables, and the Trump movement. Huge show today, very packed. In fact, we couldn't even do our 1-year anniversary. We've got so much news breaking from Florida to Arizona. We're going live all over. We've got an assessment of Joe Biden coming in. Somebody knows him very well. Jack Posobiec, an intrusion in Taiwan this morning. So it's tremendous breaking news. A fourth turning, as I keep talking about, a fourth turning like the American Revolution, the Civil War, the Great Depression, World War II. Every 80 to 100 years, the country goes through this. This fourth turning, people who are unknown, who are at complete marginalia, at the beginning of these fourth turnings, are raised up through their own human agency to their fate and their destiny, and to direct the fate of this republic. And you're seeing them all over. Professor Clements of New Mexico State University, that 30-minute video, we'll be putting this back in the live chat today, is still one of the most powerful condensed versions of the overwhelming evidence that's out there that supports that Donald J. Trump won this election on November 3rd. Now, we're being shut down all over and suppressed about nobody wants to talk about it. The military-industrial complex and the tech oligarchs have determined that it's not in their best interest. And so the uniparty is moving forward to shut that down. We will never submit to that, ever. We will never submit to that. It's the reason the show gets bigger every day, because we put forward the facts. You determine what you want to do with them. In talking about people in the 410, you got Professor Clements. You have my co-host, in-studio co-host, Scott Presler, who's a conservative activist and did yeoman's work. I put the emphasis on yeoman's work in the 2020 campaign, and has a lot of thoughts about the way forward. This audience is always asking, what can I do? What can I do? How can I help? How can I be effective? Well, Scott Presler is going to spend 2 hours today. We're going to walk through that. And also, I want to go live now to, if we can, to Karyn Turk, another person in this fourth turning that's now coming up to be a leader of this movement. Karyn Turk, who is organizing a rally in support of My Pillow, the company, and Mike Lindell, the CEO. Karyn, do we have you from Boca Raton?
You have me. I'm here in Boca Raton. I'm out here with some great patriots. We are supporting Mike Lindell, supporting his great company that makes their products in the USA. And it's hard to believe that we've gotten to this point where they can cancel culture whoever they want. And, the Twitter sphere is now dictating what goes on in our stores, and it's too much.
So talk to us about specifically what has upset the people down in Boca enough that on a Saturday morning that you guys would turn out to actually do a rally. What is it specifically that's happened to My Pillow and happened to Mike Lindell that would get patriots out on a Saturday morning away from the kids, the kids' school activities and their sports and people out playing golf? What has galvanized patriots enough to actually go to a Bed Bath & Beyond and protest?
I think we're all fed up with this stolen election and this unilateral government, and the fact that we're now in an environment where conservatives are being censored again and again and again. We live in America. We live in the land of free speech where we're supposed to have First Amendment rights. And what these retailers, Kohl's, Bed Bath & Beyond, and any retailer that's pulling these products off the shelves and saying they're not going to stock them anymore, they are just as guilty as big tech for censorship. And this is censorship just like we're seeing conservatives be censored every day online. These retailers are doing exactly the same thing. And people are fed up. My neighbors are fed up here in Florida. And I think people are fed up all over the country. And I want to encourage everyone to get behind Mike Lindell and his amazing company. This is a man who has not only built a company that employs 1,500 Americans and manufactures all of its products in America, hard to believe they would censor him, but also someone who's given back to so many American families in need through his rehabilitation programs and other things he's involved in. And I think these people out here today, really with their heart, feel that Mike Lindell is an example of someone who's such a patriotic American who's given so much back. It's hard to believe that he could become part of the cancel culture, but yet here we are.
Karyn, you're pretty sophisticated as far as new media goes. I think you've got a radio show. You understand social media. Walk our audience through how much pressure are people like yourselves under to have your own voices suppressed by the takedown of social media, the intrusions on Facebook, Twitter, all of it. Where do you stand today, and what should our audience be doing to assist people like yourselves in getting the message out?
Social media has become, a secondary platform. We have to turn to shows like this and to alternative news outlets like Real America's Voice. We can no longer trust the mainstream media, and we can no longer trust big tech. We have to now take a stand and actually turn our television sets in another direction and start watching networks like this one. And the more people that do that, the more power we are going to take away from big tech and mainstream media. And it's important for us as Americans to do that. And I think a lot of people out here, I have a ton of people out here, Steve, that saw the show last night and saw me on and said, I came because of War Room Pandemic. They're big fans, and there are people watching. So the more we band together and have a united voice, the left does a very good job of sticking together. We as conservatives need to do the same thing. And we need to raise our voices in unison that we're not going to tolerate this. We're not going to tolerate the censorship. And that's what this is about today.
Karyn, Florida has become it used to be what we call a battleground state. It still kind of is. But your leadership of Floridians in giving President Trump an overwhelming victory, also showing with the governor that you could run a fair and honest election. We get a real count and get it right away. What do you see going forward of the leadership of the state of Florida, the politicians of Florida, but particularly the grassroots of Florida? What lessons can the Floridian grassroots show the rest of the country, and particularly the Trump movement, the deplorables, the America First, the MAGA movement, as we go forward into 2022 and beyond?
Well, we're certainly growing down here in Florida because we have so many people that are escaping states like California and New York and coming to our great state where we have an amazing governor who has taken control and has said, no, I'm not going to allow my economy to be shut down. I'm not going to allow them to continue to bully our residents here. And he's really taken a stand against other leadership in our state that doesn't have the constituents' best interest at heart. And I think all states can take a lesson from Florida and a lesson from Governor DeSantis because he's done an excellent job in controlling the coronavirus crisis, the scamdemic, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of us feel very differently about this, but he has taken control of this, and he has said, I'm not going to allow my state to be affected by an overreach by government. And other states need to follow suit, because really these government overreaches are un-American in themselves.
Karyn, what are your coordinates? How do people follow you? How do people get you on social media, and particularly how they get to your show?
Well, you can find me pretty much everywhere on social media, either at Mrs. Florida 2016. And I'm certainly optimistic that Parler is going to come back, and I encourage everyone to follow me there. I'm also, of course, on Instagram. I'm on Twitter as Karyn, Karyn Turk. Hopefully they haven't censored me yet. I'm holding out hope, although I've lost a ton of followers like so many other great conservatives. And you can find my show, Red America Radio, on iHeart. And I try to do commentary like this on numerous shows and get the word out. And most of all, I'm standing here with these people. I'm here for them today because they want to have their voices heard. And I want to thank you so much for having us on, because they deserve to have their voices heard, because they are the majority of America. We are the majority of America, and conservatives need to take our country back.
Karyn, thank you so much. We'll check in before the show's over later in the next hour. Thank you. Tell all the patriots down there a lot of encouragement. It's great to see them out there, and the audience loves seeing this. And I know Mike Lindell and the people at MyPillow, particularly the employees of MyPillow that make all these products in America, really appreciate your guys' support.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, I want to bring in now Scott Presler, who's our in-studio co-host today. This is what it's about, and this is what you're about. You're a conservative MAGA activist. Walk us through exactly what that means, and how does this represent the best of our activism?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, Mr. Bannon.
No, it's just Steve. It's Steve. I don't want to be that old.
You said the first word, which is activist. The root word is act. Enough talking, start doing. And that means registering voters, lobbying your legislators, knocking on doors, writing letters. It means actually doing what the Democrats have been doing. And if the Republican Party does that, we will win elections in 2022.
What did you do really? We got about a minute. In 2020, you were at the forefront of this voter registration.
Yes.
Walk people through the small town. How did you actually do this? Your name became legendary in this movement in the 2020 election. What happened?
I called all 50 Secretary of State offices, found out the rules, regulations, came up with a voter registration guide, no matter whether you're in Hawaii, California, Texas, and I literally gave you step-by-step instructions for how to register a voter, where to go, how to turn in the forms, and make sure that we are empowering new voters to go out and find their polling location and vote for President Trump. So I've created the tools.
How did people respond to that when they had the tools put in front of them? What was the response?
A woman named Edie, shout out to you, Edie, in Pennsylvania. She and her friend, because of my voter registration class that I taught in State College, which is very blue, registered 600 voters. 2 women by themselves, because of the voter registration guide that I taught, registered 600 voters.
And that's tough to do. I'm telling you, that shows motivation. Okay, Scott Presler is going to be with us for the entire show. We're going to get back to him, talk about his story, and also about the way forward. We're going to take a short commercial break. There's all kind of news breaking on the trial about process, nomenclature, critical path. We're going to bring in Boris Epshteyn, one of the lawyers, to talk about it all. After a short commercial break here in the War Room in the Green Zone, at what was our nation's capital. We'll be back in a moment.
We're taking down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have all lied for too long. We will end what they do wrong.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, folks, we've got a lot to get through today. We've got Scott Presler here for all 2 hours. He's one of the top activists in the MAGA movement. We're going to talk about how you can get engaged. Everybody's in fight mood now. You had your one day of feeling bad for the country and feeling bad for yourself. Now it's time to fight on, and that's where we are. I want to get in Boris Epshteyn. Boris, they dropped, I think, a bomb last night. People were kind of lulled to sleep. This trial was going to start on the 15th. The president would have plenty of time to get prepared. And then all of a sudden they came out with a process last night that was quite different than have been advertised. One of the things we do in the war room is walk people through process. We walk them through critical path. We let them get a mental map in their mind of what's about to take place so they can start thinking downrange. Can you walk us through exactly what the developments overnight are and where we are today with the trial of the century? That would be the trial of Donald J. Trump in the United States Senate.
Steve, absolutely. Good morning to you. And before we go forward, I just want to wish Allah ha-shalom, as they say in Hebrew, peace be upon him, to Larry King, a true American legend, an amazing American story, passed away this morning. It's a seminal moment, and to any of us who've been a part of broadcasting, TV, radio, and you all are such on the front lines of that now, and I think it's nice to honor Larry King, who was really a great American.
In fact, I think Donald Trump got his real start in doing and became known to the nation and doing the Larry King show back in the 80s. He knew Larry King very well, very close to Larry King. Yes, no.
Yeah, very close to Larry King.
A great American. I wasn't crazy about his politics at the end, but supposed to be a great guy, absolutely a great guy, real mensch.
I didn't even know anything about his politics in the end, but real mensch, that's a good word. See, Steve, I always knew you were one of us. That's a great Yiddish word there, a great mensch. A great mensch, absolutely.
What happened overnight?
So back to the point.
Yeah, no, but Boris, I think for our audience, here's people been lulled to sleep. It's kind of confusing what's going on. Lindsey Graham's hanging around the rim. You've seen reports a little bit from Mar-a-Lago, at Washington, D.C., Mitch McConnell's working on this thing. It's going to be on the 15th. You got a guy from South Carolina nobody's heard of. It's going to be the lawyer. And it's supposed to be a good guy, don't get me wrong. But all of a sudden, boom, late at night last night, the dime gets dropped on you. And it's quite different, unless I'm wrong, and you're going to walk us through the process and the system than what was advertised. Yes. This trial does not start on the 15th. This trial starts, I think, 2 weeks earlier on the 2nd.
Well, actually, it starts even earlier than that, and you're right. And keeping with our theme, on Shabbos, which I don't appreciate, they dropped the schedule. And here's the schedule. Monday, January 25th, which is 2 days from now, exhibition of the impeachment article. Tuesday, January 26th, swearing in of senators and issuance of summons. Tuesday, February 2nd, just a week from the issuance of summons, due date for the president's answer to the article and the House's pretrial brief. Then Monday, February 8th, due date for president's pretrial brief, due date for House's replication to answer, that's the reply. And then Tuesday, February 9th, due date for House's pretrial rebuttal brief, and the trial can begin. So all this talk of, Mitch McConnell is working with crying Chuck Schumer and Lindsey Graham to push this off, and maybe it's going to be February 14th, Valentine's Day. All that is nonsense. As Chuck Schumer said on Wednesday, January 20th, they are moving forward in a speedy way, forthwith, with the trial of President Trump. They're not messing around. And there was an article this morning talking about how Mitch McConnell is being, quote unquote, pushed by Republicans to get rid of President Trump, to expunge President Trump's legacy in the Republican Party and convict. There's been absolutely no full-throated statement from Mitch McConnell in terms of being against this contrived canard of an impeachment. Quite the opposite. Yesterday, there was a statement from Mitch McConnell and his team talking about how this 1 week timeline to produce a brief and then another week for a reply is giving the president, quote unquote, due process. Well, here's my problem with that statement from Minority Leader McConnell. My problem with that statement is I thought part of the argument was supposed to be that the president would argue due process, Republicans would be okay with that, and then he wouldn't be convicted. Well, if Mitch McConnell is saying that this extremely expedited, extremely unfair timeline is due process, seems to me like that deal's off the table. Doesn't it seem like that to you, Steve?
I think I just want to make sure the audience understands something. The president's response to the impeachment article, and particularly page 3, which goes through all of his efforts to show voter fraud, election fraud, ballot fraud in individual states. On February 2nd, he has to answer that with briefs, correct? Does that mean he lays out his case, and is he able to bring in other elements after that, or is that basically like in a criminal trial, you lay it out and that's what you have to go with?
He answers the article on February 2nd, and then he submits a pretrial brief on February 8th. So Tuesday, February 2nd is the answer, which if you think about a criminal trial, which A, this is not exactly, but B, they are supposed to follow those rules as much as possible. So that the answer is your position.
Yep.
A pretrial brief has a lot of the examples and exhibits, and that's sort of the meat. But your main answer, your main position, the president's main position, based on this schedule, is due February 2nd. And it also has to be stated that I continue to believe that any trial at this point in time, after the president has left office, is deeply unconstitutional. There's no practice history for it. There's no precedent history for it. The point of these trials are to remove, in terms of the president, when applied to the president, the point of these trials are to remove a sitting president. Well, guess what? All of that fear, all of that pearl clutching the Democrats and many rhino Republicans did of, oh, this president's not going to leave. He's going to stay. The military is going to have to come get him. None of that happened. I was there at Joint Base Andrews. The president said, I love you, and I'll be back in some way. And he flew off on Air Force One into the horizon to my way from Frank Sinatra.
As you
He's not president anymore.
As you see it right now, is the president's defense with Bowers going to be some limited about the events of that day, or do you think that it even leaves time to come forward with a full-blown, put the Republican senators on trial and actually argue that the election was stolen from him, that he's actually got the receipts, and to take 20, 25 days, it goes state by state, vertical by vertical, and make his case of how and where it was stolen?
I believe that's being worked out as we speak. Here's what I will tell you, and this is just my perspective. My view of it is that there are three parts to the president's reply to the president's argument in connection with this ludicrous political hatchet job of an impeachment. One is due process. Yes, it was rushed through. It's being rushed through in the Senate. The president is not getting a fair shake. And it's unconstitutional for a trial to be there in the first place. So that's called the due process line, okay? Second, if you look at the events of January 6th, I was there at the speech. The president specifically said, march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol. Peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol. There was no incitement whatsoever. And if you look at the timeline, as Jack Posobiec has done a great job at, Raheem has done a great job at, the timeline doesn't line up. It wasn't if the president gave this huge rah-rah speech, fired people up, and they marched to the Capitol, and then the riot, which we all condemn, happened. That is not what happened. Even CNN put out an article saying that this was pre-planned. And there's also, we know from the rest of John Sullivan and others, there was significant Antifa and BLM presence in the riot. So that is the second vertical. First vertical, due process. Second vertical is no incitement. And then the third vertical is pushing back on this narrative that the Democrats and their comrades in the media are now putting forward, which was all, quote unquote, a big lie. The term that Claire McCaskill and Jake Tapper used, a big lie pushed by Republicans. A term that was birthed by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis in Mein Kampf. They're saying, oh, it was all a big lie. Any statement of election fraud, voter fraud was somehow a big lie. That is false. Very clear election fraud, voter fraud. There was clear violation of Article 2 that state legislatures determine how presidential elections are held in their states. And that was violated in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. So those are the three verticals that I would focus on in fighting this ludicrous, weak, pathetic impeachment.
Okay, Boris, give us your coordinates. How do people stay up with you on social media, particularly during the next couple of weeks, as you're going to be breaking news about what's actually going on here in this trial? Remember, part of this trial is to crush the MAGA movement and President Trump. The other is to provide cover, information warfare cover, as they try to jam through a radical agenda in executive orders and also legislation. So we're going to be handling both. We got to keep both in our minds at the exact same time. So, Boris, what's your coordinates on social media?
No doubt about it. We have to focus on the signal, not the noise. Social media, I'm on Instagram, Boris_Epshteyn. I'm a couple of hundred away from 10,000. Let's get there today. Boris_EPSHTEYN on the gram, at Boris EP on Twitter. Boris_Epshteyn on Instagram, at Boris EP on Twitter. Steve, thanks so much to your listeners, to your viewers. Stay strong and God bless.
Thank you. Scott Presler, I want to the grassroots out there, how important, you were actually we got about a minute, you were in the field of battle. How important is this trial of President Trump to our grassroots?
It's critical. Now is when we're going to find out who we need to primary, repeal, and replace in the 2022 elections. And this is going out to Republicans like Marco Rubio and Lisa Murkowski, et cetera. So this is going to be the gunshot heard around the world, which Republicans betray our president and which support him.
You're hearing it from Scott Presler, one of the top conservative activists, and somebody was on the ground in all these states. When we come back, we're going to go to Arizona and Wyoming. Arizona to Maricopa County to find out what's going on in the forensic audit. In Wyoming, what is the fate of Liz Cheney? To Scott Presler. We're going to hold them all accountable. We're also going to talk to Scott Presler, who was in the field when all this went on about the big steal. We'll return in a moment on War Room Pandemic.
It's all started, everything's begun, and you are over, 'cause we're taking down the CCP. Spread the word of
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we're going to go to Arizona in a second with Liz Harris, but I want to turn first to Scott Presler. There's a lot happening in Arizona. Liz Harris is going to give us a live update on what's happening in Maricopa County with this forensic audit, but there's more happening in Arizona today, correct?
Yes. Well, they're going to be voting for their chairperson, and Dr. Ward has been the chairwoman of the AP. And I think they're the one state party that has actually been fighting tooth and nail for election integrity. And speaking of which, you at home, you're probably discouraged. You're feeling like, how do we stop what happened in the 2020 elections from happening again? Well, I've created a document that already tells you what to do, for example, in Arizona. So if you go to my Twitter, if you go to my Telegram, t.me/Scott Presler, I will send you a document that shows you current legislation that is introduced right now at this very second that you can call your representatives. You can call your senators first in the subcommittees, because what you understand is that bills a lot of the time die first because they don't even get through the subcommittee. So step one, we lobby our legislators in the subcommittees to make sure that a bill goes to the House and the Senate. We get them through both of the chambers. Then we lobby the governor, who's Doug Ducey, but we still have to put pressure on our Republican governors to pass this legislation because, guys, we control 23 trifecta state governments. What does that mean? That means that Republicans control the governorship and both chambers in the state legislative level. So that means you have the power, if you choose, to lobby your legislators to pass election integrity form. And if you're serious about winning in 2022, if you are serious about 2024, or you want to start a third party, it's going to start first with election integrity reform.
Listen, we're still got to get, don't think we've taken our eye off the ball on November 3rd, because we have not. That's why we are pressing to have this massive trial in the United States Senate. President Trump and his team should have the opportunity to present all the receipts state by state, including Arizona. I want to go to Maricopa County. Remember, on the Dominion systems, I've said from day one, hey, that takes a deeper investigation. I've always called it the free option, that there was so much low-hanging fruit, particularly in Arizona, on just good old voter fraud with illegal aliens voting, people not registered in the state voting, people coming from post office box, all of that. Also with just the good old ballot fraud. But in Dominion, I've always said what you have to do is use the legal process to be able to get the machines. It's going to take a time, but you got to get in back of these algorithms, these fraction. I think some of the people in the live chat are talking about the fractional algorithms. You got to be able to get into the machines and actually see what's going on. It's not related to servers on the moon, gun battles in Frankfurt. The mullahs doing it from Iran. It's basically in those machines and in the system. I want to bring in Liz Harris. Liz, you guys have fought, the Judiciary Committee of the Senate has fought to basically subpoena, I think, the Board of Supervisors of Maricopa County actually get a forensic audit of all this and actually do it in a process that is a legal process. Now, it clearly came after the inauguration of Joe Biden, but it still must be done. We still have to get to the bottom of November 3rd. Nothing can go forward. No wounds can be healed. The country cannot be united until we understand what went on. And quite frankly, I have said that you will see that Donald J. Trump won the presidency on that day. Tell us what is going on in Maricopa County right now.
Okay, it's very important for your viewers to know that in Maricopa County, essentially the forensic audit, the way it's being set up, I feel very confident it's not being set up to find fraud. It's being set up to basically show that everything's okay. So according to my very reliable sources.
So hang on a second. But is this just all of a sudden you get a forensic audit, you're going to audit the machines, and all of a sudden the MAGA movement and the Trump movement's whining already, oh, but it's not going to be the audit we want. Are you just trying to cover it are you just trying to cover the fact that you don't think you're going to get the right outcome? Or is this meaningful that you got the wrong team there, the wrong firm? What is it?
Sorry about that. So what's happening is essentially the auditors that they're wanting to pick are basically the same group of auditors that bless the Dominion systems.
Well, maybe they bless the Dominion systems because there's nothing wrong with the systems. Why is that? Tell me why they're blessing the Dominion systems. When did they bless it? How did they bless it? Why? Maybe they bless it because it's okay. That's my point. Why do you say?
Right.
Give me the details of why this is the wrong pick.
Okay, so I think the whole country knows that we have two auditors, Jovan Pulitzer and Colonel Phil Waldron, that are the two auditors that have traveled the country, and they know how to do the deep dive and how to look for the fraud. If you have a company that uses or are certified auditors that use 2005
but Phil,
standards,
hang on. Phil Waldron is a guy associated with the Trump. He's being paid by either the Trump campaign or people associated with Trump. He's not an independent auditor. He's an advocate. I'm not saying he shouldn't have some role or oversee it, but you can't have those two guys. You might as well hire the War Room to go do the audit. You got to have an independent company, correct?
Here's my question, Steve. Can you name an independent company that knows how to look for the fraud?
You know what?
Nobody has.
It's not my line of work. I'm sure there's one out there.
Okay. All right. No. So I'm going to once again. I have never spoken to Jovan until yesterday. He has agreed for the state of Arizona to audit 2.1 physical ballots. Basically, the physical ballots, he will automate. He has an basically artificial intelligence to basically see where the fraud lies, which ballots are illegal, which ballots are not legal. Who else in this country, as a certified or not certified auditor, who as an expert has the ability to know which ballots are real and which aren't?
So Maricopa County has Maricopa County has now agreed, which they fought, to actually do the forensic audit, and they're in the process of retaining an independent firm to do that audit. Is that basically where we stand? And your argument, your beef, is that the firms they're looking at are not basically independent.
Correct. And also the scope of the audit is not deep enough. It's not the deep dive. We don't want random samples. We don't want to look at the ballots that were duplicated. We want to look at the physical ballots. We want to see the creases. We want to see which ones weren't filled, like where there's modifications on the ballot. Basically, I'm pleading with you and the people of the country to please call our state legislators. There's 3 of them, Karyn Fan, Warren Peterson, and Michelle Ugentyrita, to basically state we want auditors that are going to do a deep dive. We don't want auditors to basically do a simple check and say everything is beautiful. Okay, you know what, Steve? Let's get the EAC certified auditors, but why not invite Jovan in?
Okay.
Why not invite Colonel Waldron in? Everyone wants Democrats.
Liz, here's what I think would be helpful. I tell you what we'll do. We're going to go offline and get exactly what you want our audience. I only want our audience to focus on what can move the needle. And clearly there's some issues out there in Maricopa County. And I know you guys have been fighting tooth and nail, and the whole country owes you and the patriots out there a great debt of obligation for the fight that you had. What I want to make sure is we're most efficient and effective. So we're going to get, and I want you to put through exactly what we need our audience. We'll write it down offline. and we'll come back with Presler and myself.
Okay.
We'll make sure the audience knows it. I want to make sure that they're, because our guys want to know how to help, and we get out there and we actually talk. I do think on these auditors, we do have to have an independent auditor, and then you have the Colonel Waldrons and the Johans. Our guys also can review that information and argue through where it's accurate, where it's not accurate. I do think you have to have someone not associated with this movement to actually come in and do the audit. But I 100% agree with you. It has to be a deep dive audit. We just don't need another, slap and tickle, which has been done in some of these other places. You need a deep dive to really get to the bottom of what happened. Yes, ma'am.
Right. Steve, really quick, I think they're open to 3 auditors. So let them have their auditor, that the independent, as you described, and then what harm is it to have Jovan Pulitzer
Yep.
and Colonel Phil Waldron come? Again,
Yep.
Colonel Waldron is equipment only. Jovan is physical ballot only.
Yep.
Why not do all 3?
Yep.
It doesn't hurt, and that's what will give the citizens of Arizona the confidence. Thank you, Steve.
Belt, suspenders, and another belt. Liz, you're fighting the good fight out there. You're a real patriot. People love you, so just keep the fight. We'll make sure we get this organized and get out there for what the audience can go forward and make sure that they have your back. So thank you very much, and thank everybody out there, all the patriots out there, for working on this and not giving up.
Thank you.
Okay, Liz Harris. Scott, that's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, on this show, we try to give you the geopolitics and the finance and the pandemic and all the high-level sophisticated stuff, the inside baseball of Washington. But where the rubber meets the road is situations like in Boca Raton, where you got the rally, in Arizona. And remember, for the nation and for the world, they're not giving up. What's so important is you've had the inauguration. Biden's dropping EOs, and people are fighting that, and we're going to get organized on fighting that. But they still understand that this wound that will not heal won't be healed until we get to the facts of what happened on November 3rd and the days thereafter. Scott, how important is this to the grassroots to continue to fight this fight?
It's everything. How are people going to trust that the candidate that they vote for is going to that candidate unless we have election integrity? So one thing that you can do is you need to call all 50 of your states and demand an audit of the vote. I don't care if it's done now in 2021. The fact of the matter is we need to continue to fight for truth and justice, which is a complete audit of the vote, whether you're in Nebraska or Florida or Texas. We need to find the fraud and institute solutions to address those problems. And like Steve said, how are we going to gain the trust of the grassroots and, more importantly, get people back into voting if they don't believe that their vote matters?
The grassroots are going to have to lead this effort. This is a bottom-led effort to continue to demand what happened on November 3rd and to make sure we get a true accounting of that. Because a true accounting of that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to take Biden's approval, which is already below 50%, down to the mid-30s, as people understand this. Okay, now I want to go to Wyoming. Joey Correnti, the fourth, the county chairman out there. Joey, walk us through what's the latest. We got about 2 minutes, but I'm going to hold you. What is the latest on Liz Cheney? There's a huge firestorm here about throwing her out of leadership, led by Lisa Stefanik. But what's going on out in Wyoming to hold her accountable by the great citizens of the great state of Wyoming?
Well, thanks for having me on again, Steve, and carrying the voice of Wyoming across the nation. First thing we're doing this morning is we've got 2 of our counties that are having their meetings, and they're going to be considering the same resolution that was passed by our county last week. One of those counties is Lincoln County, where the co-author of the resolution resides, Taylor Allred. He's done a great job in fighting for recognition of the issues that we have. So they're going to go and discuss that this morning. I'll get back with you later today and tell you whether they passed or not. But more interestingly, since your story broke on Monday about the censure of Liz Cheney, at least 4 people have registered to run against her in 2022, which is extremely early. But they have properly registered with the FEC and started their campaigns and making sure that this doesn't go away quietly.
So what, you have another event coming up. I know the counties are getting the censures. Talk to us about, you got about 30 seconds. What's the date that you guys are having this state convention?
It's actually a state central committee meeting, and it'll be on February 6th when the entire representation of the Wyoming Republican Party will meet up and also consider not only our regular business, but this resolution and a few others that are facing Wyoming. And also from this resolution that we passed, we've had many other states and counties across the nation. You know, Kentucky had a county that censured Mitch McConnell. Illinois has got 2 counties that are censuring their rep. The Oregon State GOP sent a letter of reprimand to their representatives, and this has really been the beginning of a movement of actively holding your representation accountable, even if there isn't a tangible effect to it.
Joey, hang on for a second. We'll take you over the break.
No problem.
Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when they're
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Our co-host, in-studio co-host, Scott Presler, said it best, that leaders need to be held accountable for what happened on November 3rd and what happened thereafter. There has to be accountability, and this has got to start the senior leadership. Joey Correnti IV is a county chairman out in the great state of Wyoming, out in the Big Sky country, and they're holding Liz Cheney accountable out there for her actions, her actual leadership in leading to the impeachment of the president the second time in the closing days of his first term. Joey, just real quickly, how do people, I've been, since I've had you and the state party chairman on, I don't think my phone's blown up more. There's an effort in Washington that Lisa Stefanik and others are leading to remove her from leadership. And people should understand, they're talking about 107 people have already signed up. There's many more than that. I do believe she will be removed from leadership. But it's more important that the people from her state hold her accountable. And I think it's why you've started a prairie fire there from Oregon to Illinois, that other people, Kentucky, people are starting to pick it up about other representatives, including even Mitch McConnell. And just so I think people want to keep up to date more with what you're doing out in Wyoming, because you're leading the nation, and particularly you're reinforcing what the grassroots feel, that people and particularly leaders need to be held accountable for this. So once again, can you give us your coordinates so that people can keep up with what you guys are doing in Wyoming?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find out everything going on with the Wyoming GOP at wyoming.gop. And the Carbon County Republican Party, we have a Facebook page, is Carbon County Wyoming Republican Party. And we're constantly putting up all the news stories, everybody that's carrying the voice. There hasn't been any response from Representative Cheney directly related to this, not only to me, but I haven't heard. I talked to Chairman Ethorn last night, and nothing was mentioned about a response, nor have I seen her mention it in the press. You know, she's given a couple interviews on other subjects, but we still haven't gotten a response in any way, shape, or form. So we have formally called her to appear on February 6th at the State Central Committee meeting to explain what's been going on.
Joey, the word around town here is that she just hopes this go away, that you guys lose interest, that the grassroots, you get diverted to other things, that you take, people, and the whole thing with President Trump, purge him from this party and trying to purge him from this movement, what they're trying to do in the Senate, that the grassroots will eventually, they'll be depressed, but they'll come back and they'll be good boys and girls and just follow what the leadership wants to do. Is that going to happen in Wyoming?
That really never happens in Wyoming, and I think that it's a huge mistake to continue the trend of underestimating Wyoming. It's happened for a long time, and it's sad to see that our own representative is following suit, believing that, the clock's going to run out on this, other things are going to happen, and we'll all be good friends again. But the fact that right now we have 4 candidates who have already filed to run against her, I can guarantee you any of these candidates worth their salt will have this as a major pivot point in their campaigns. This will not go away.
Joey, thank you very much for joining us here on the War Room Pandemic. Really appreciate it.
Anytime, boss. Thank you.
The grassroots, Scott, this is what it's all about. Standing and delivering and saying, hey, just because you're a Cheney, just because you're part of the Republican Party royalty, you cannot do what you just did, play into the left's hands to besmirch, smear, and destroy a president of the United States and the leader of this movement and just get away with it. You're going to be held accountable by working class men and women throughout the country, and particularly from your home state of Wyoming.
And I've got 2 words for Liz Cheney: Eric Cantor. And I'm coming to Cheyenne, Wyoming. I've already set a date. We're looking at April 24th. I've heard it's windy. That's okay. I've got my boots. I'm ready to go. But we are going to empower the grassroots. So you at home, I urge you, if you want to get involved and if you want to make sure that we are holding our leaders accountable, join the Wyoming GOP, become a precinct chair, get in a leadership role, and let's make sure that our leadership works for us, not the other way around.
Scott Presler. Okay, I want to bring in Raheem Kassam, my co-host here and the editor of the National Pulse, who just done an incredible job, and the host on Real America's Voice of the National Pulse TV show every afternoon, Monday through Friday, 3 to 4 p.m. Raheem, give me an assessment. You've seen the fireworks from Boca Raton defending Mike Lindell to Maricopa County to Wyoming. This place is on fire. The trial that's about to start. Give us your assessment of where we stand.
Well, I think where we stand is that I'm noticing that people are more engaged than ever before. And that is something that the media and the Democrats have tried to drum out of the conservative movement over the last couple of weeks. We talked about the demoralization campaign. We talked about the psyops that have been going on from here in Washington, D.C. to all around the country. And it's not working. If anything, it's pushing people the other way, more engaged, seeking out more news, more real facts, more stories, getting engaged locally. That's very clear. It's clear in terms of the number of signups people are seeing on their websites. I mean, Terry Schilling was telling me after he came on the show yesterday, 20,000 people from this audience signed his petition to save women's sports. That is an extraordinary number of people willing to take a step and be active. And we're saying the same thing from the National Pulse website to the signups at warroom.org/join. The base is fired up like never before. And I think it's just an incredible and amazing thing.
Let's go to, by the way, I want to hold you over to the break. I've got Pasoba going on after you about breaking news out of Taiwan, but I got to hold you over. I got to ask a couple of questions. Number one, before we leave this topic, I just want to go back to what Terry Schilling said and to get everybody in this audience. You are setting the world on fire because when people come on the show, you blow them away by the signups. Go back to this issue about stealing little girls' sports, women's sports. Where do people go to sign up again? I want another 20,000 to sign up today.
Look, one of Joe Biden's first actions in the Oval Office was to allow men into women's locker rooms, effectively allowing men to compete in women's sports against them. And Terry Schilling came on. Terry has 2 daughters. It's an incredibly important topic for him and for his group, the American Principles Project. And they launched the site SaveWomen'sSports.us. You can go to SaveWomen'sSports.us and everybody who is on, whether they're on Capitol Hill or local representatives, they're all studying this issue. I know they are. I know they're looking at it. They know that the public doesn't like it, and they want to hear your voices on it.
Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. Raheem, if you just hang through, we had a quick commercial break here at the top of the hour to get into the second hour of the show. We're going to have Raheem Kassam rejoin us. I want Raheem's thoughts on the color revolution that's on in this country, trying to crush the grassroots opposition to the Uniparty. Jack Posobiec about Taiwan. We're going to have S.G. Chia from EV Magazine to talk about the Great Reset. It's not a conspiracy. It's the way the system works. She's going to talk to you. And Mike McCormick on insights about Joe Biden and his dementia. All next hour. We're in Pandemic.